Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the June My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. In the June kit, we received some really beautiful papers and embellishments from the 49 and Market Everywhere collection. This is a travel theme collection that I love the color scheme of. I love the combination of orange and blue, and I had quite a few travel pictures that I wanted to scrapbook. This particular photo that I'm using is from several years ago. My family loves to go to Cape Cod, although we haven't been there recently as the kids have gotten older. I hope to be able to go there as a family again at some point. I mounted my photo first on some white cardstock and then on a piece of orange pattern paper. I'm going to layer a number of the cards that we got in the kit behind it. First, I'm inking the edges of everything with some black soot distress ink. And now I'm just arranging those pieces behind the photo, just trying to create an interesting layered look. Often when I'm using cards like this behind the photo, I like to cut them into smaller pieces. That way I don't waste a lot of the card behind the photo where it won't be seen. And then I can use the leftover pieces on other layouts. I always feel like you never know when you might want even the smallest strip of something in a particular color, so I try to conserve my papers and my embellishments. I will take everything that's left over after I'm done creating layouts for the month. I put them in a bag, and then I'll bring all of those papers and leftover embellishments with me when I go to a crop. I find it's really handy to have the pieces of the kit all together, and this way I have as many leftover pieces as possible to create another layout. I'm adding some tags to the top. I used a die to make the dark blue tag, and then the light blue tag that is one of the tags from this month's kit. I'm going to add a few more embellishments to the right hand side of the photo. I wanted to create almost a triangle going from the top where the tags are to the bottom, and you'll see as I build up the embellishments, they form a loose triangle. I really like all of the embellishments to be distinct. I like when there's contrast between all the different elements on the page. So I'm always looking for ways that I can define elements, and one of those is by putting a mat around them. In this case, I am putting a off-white mat around these banners, and I think that with the black soot distress ink, it will help them to stand out or contrast with the background. The second banner has a pink side and another side that has a map on it, and at first I was going to use the pink side, and then I decided to use the side that had the map, and then later on I go back and I flip that around and I go with the pink side again. I'm not really sure why. I think both sides look good, and that made it hard to decide. I'm also going to add this globe. Even though we didn't really go too far, we're in New York and Cape Cod is in Massachusetts, I love the idea of including embellishments like this on my travel themed layouts. I also really liked that pair of binoculars. I just tried it on the layout for a moment. There were a number of those in the kit this month in different sizes. I am going to bring one back. Not only do I like the binoculars because they're travel themed, but I like the shape that the strap makes. So we'll see binoculars again in a little bit on this layout. I included a title that says, "Here we are." I popped it up on some foam, and I love the way it looks layered on top of the globe. However, later on, I'm going to take that off because I use a different title and it competes too much. It's hard to tell which one is the title, and I decided that I would just take it off, but I actually like that a lot. I added some of these beautiful 49 and Market flowers that we got in this month's kit to the lower left-hand side of the photo. I used 2 large orange flowers, and then I made a little cluster with some of the leaves and the buds that were also in that pack. I want to further add to that idea of having a large triangle cluster, so I am adding a long strip of tickets to the bottom of the photo cluster. I wanted to move those banners down a little bit so there wouldn't be a gap between the tickets and the banners. So I had to do a little bit of rearranging. You could see that I used a piece of cardstock to help anchor those banners to the back of the photo. Sometimes I just find it's a little easier to get everything to stay adhered exactly where I want it when I put some adhesive on a piece of cardstock and then layer it on top. I added a tab to the left-hand side of the photo. I'm going to be putting my date there. And then this is where I decided that I had to turn that banner around to the pink side. I'm not sure. I think maybe I like that other side better now that I'm looking at it. Having the opportunity to watch my process back on videos really helps me to see things a little more clearly, and sometimes makes me scratch my head about why I changed certain things. You might laugh at me, but I have the layout in front of me right now, and I just switched it back over again to the side that has the map. I just like that a little bit better, but you won't see that in the final picture because I took a picture of it with the pink side showing. I added some photo corners. I love to add photo corners, and the 49 and Market ephemera pack had lots and lots of photo corners, so I was really happy about that. I picked out some pink ones and I put them in 3 of the corners. I love these little very delicate laser cut bows that 49 and Market had been including in some of their collections. So I put a navy blue one on the small tag at the top of the photo. I chose navy blue because I thought it would help to tie the 2 tags together since the larger tag is navy blue. I wanted to add an element in the upper right hand corner. So I took a piece of the same blue paper that I used to make the tag. I distressed the edges and then I adhered it down. Recently I was trying to create the same effect on one of my layouts, and instead of taking this approach, I ripped the background paper and tried to put the paper behind the background paper, and it was kind of a disaster. So I'm being a little bit more conservative right now. I'm sure I'll go back to ripping the paper in the future, but this actually works too. And if I was to decide that I didn't like the way it looked, I could always just peel this up, and I think it looks very similar to ripping the background paper. So it's another option. I used a We Are Memory Keepers paper punch. You could see it off to the left, or you could see it off to the left until I put the rub-ons on top of it. And I punched a ring to put around the tag at the top of the photo cluster. In this kit, we got this 12 by 12 inch sheet of rub-ons. There were titles and there were some other images as well. Rub-ons, I think, have made a big comeback in the last year or so. They're really fun to work with. I think I used to shy away from them because I had heard, and this had never happened to me, but I had heard that sometimes over time they don't work as well. But now I have been using these 49 and Market rub-ons quite a bit. They work really beautifully. You just have to cut whatever image you want out of the larger sheet, place them down on your layout, make sure they're where you want them, and then you remove the backing, stick them down, and then there's a white stick that's included, and you can use that to rub them permanently onto your pattern paper or whatever it is that you place them on. I love the way that after they're applied, they blend right in with the pattern paper that they're on, and they add to the design. The large cluster that I created, it's all attached to itself, but I didn't attach it to the background. I do this a lot because I will often think I'm not going to add any mixed media or anything to the background, and then later on I'll change my mind. I've done this enough times that I've learned to just attach everything to itself, and that allows me to be able to move the whole cluster off of the page if I need to. You can see here that I am using the cluster to help me decide where to place the modeling paste, but once I decide where to put the modeling paste, I can remove that whole cluster. So it is very handy to be able to move it around. I also drew a light pencil line to give me a general idea of where I'm going to put the cluster on the background. That helps me out too. I'm using some Liquitex modeling paste and a My Creative Scrapbook stencil from another kit. There's also a stencil in this kit, and I do use that on another layout that I made this month. On this layout, I wanted to add some additional texture to the background, but I didn't want to add another color. I think this is a stunning background paper. I love the pink and the blue wash. I just thought that a little bit of texture would make the background more interesting. In order to apply modeling paste near the piece of blue paper, I could have just lifted up the blue paper, but I decided to just leave it where it was and try to work around it. And as always, whenever putting any kind of mixed media, texture paste, or paints in the background, a lot of it does get covered up by the cluster. So I do try to add a decent amount so that once I layer the photo cluster back on top, the texture will still be visible. On this layout, because the color of the texture paste is so close to the colors in the background, I don't have to worry too much about over applying it. On other layouts, I would have to be a little bit more careful. After I applied the texture paste, I added some white splatters. This is watered down white acrylic paint. I love to add white splatters to my backgrounds. On this particular layout, I didn't go crazy adding too much because there's already a lot of white in the background. I put the background aside to allow it to dry, and now I'm going to add some finishing touches to my large photo cluster here. I'm using some orange twine, added that to the tag. Now I'm adding some enamel dots to some of the embellishments. I added some light blue enamel dots to the photo corners, and I put an orange one on the pink banner that's off to the right of the photo. I used some ATG adhesive to temporarily hold the flowers in place, and then I used some matte gel medium to permanently adhere them to the layout. I switched the blue enamel dots. I think that I switched them for a slightly different color. I added an orange enamel dot to one of the photo corners and then a pink enamel dot to the heart embellishment that's near the title. I stamped the date on the tab. I'm adding some pink enamel dots to that banner that's at the bottom of the layout. And then I decided that I was going to make that torn area on the upper right-hand side a little bit smaller. Good thing that I used a piece of paper and didn't rip a hole in the paper, but it just looked a little tiny bit too big to me. I'm again using that gel medium to attach these smaller flowers and the leaves onto the background. Now I'm using one of the title rub-ons. This one says, "We love being travelers," and I'm adding that at the top of the layout. I'm also adding a small orange little paint splatter rub-on to the bottom near where the flowers are. Here I'm using my T-square to make sure that I have it positioned correctly on the background, that it's nice and straight. I'm going to first rub down that splatter on the bottom of the layout. I absolutely love the ability to add little details like this using rub-ons. And now I'm adding the title to the top. Once the backing is removed from the rub-on, there's a little bit of stick to it, which really helps during the rub-on process because it doesn't move around easily. You just have to be careful to position it correctly. And you really don't have to rub very hard. They transfer onto the paper without a lot of effort. This is where I attach one of the binocular ephemera pieces down to the layout and decide that I didn't like the way the titles were kind of competing with each other. So I took off the "Here We Are" and I rearranged some of the other embellishments that were already on the globe. And then I thought I would add some smaller sentiments. One says "Awesome Adventure" and another one says "Together." Then I took those off thinking I might want to add this little stack of suitcases. I took that off too. And then I returned those two sentiments to the globe. And I also added this little circular embellishment with the picture of the camera on it. I love to add butterflies to my layouts. I can't really think of too many layouts that I don't think a butterfly would be appropriate on. And I love the way there were some travel themed butterflies in this kit, so I decided to put a larger one on the larger cluster of flowers and then a more medium-sized butterfly on the cluster in the upper right-hand corner. I inked the edges with the black soot again, just so that everything on the page would look cohesive. And then I tucked them into those clusters. I pop up the smaller butterfly because that one is sitting more on the background than on the flowers. The larger butterfly, though, that one, I just attach that right down to the flowers because it's resting on top of them and it doesn't need any additional dimension. Then I went back to the sentiments that I had put in place but hadn't attached down. There was already a black border around the word together, so I didn't ink the edges of that one. But for the awesome adventure sentiment, I inked the edges with the black soot and attached that down. Then I rearranged the embellishments slightly, put some adhesive on the back of that orange camera, and then I added just a little bit of embellishment to the centers of the butterflies, just 3 pearls down the centers of them. That is the last touch, and this layout is complete. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and I really hope that you enjoyed watching. In the description box, you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website where you can take a look at all the kits and purchase a subscription. You can also check out all of the social media where you can get lots of inspiration, lots of layout ideas. If you celebrate, I hope you have a great July 4th, and I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.